Happy birthday, Rory.
Thank you. It is, weirdly enough.
Hooray!
Good.
How are we doing for time, everybody?
It is 2 minutes past 9.
How would you feel about singing happy birthday to Rory?
I've already hit record
Wait.
for that reason.
Are we ready?
Wait,
Yeah.
wait. There is one thing. Rory, you're going to need to come and get closer to the camera for this.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll sing and then we can all help blow it out.
Oh no, I actually have an additional. I'm sorry to upstage your orange. I made a cake.
What?
Right. So I'm just gonna set this on fire.
I thought you were going to bring out a grapefruit.
Sorry.
Just be like,
Motherfucker, here's me with my fucking Satsuma.
We could stuff the Satsuma with chocolate.
You're horrifying.
Well,
Thank you, Frankie.
you're welcome, darling. I'm still gonna blow it out. Anyone who wants to blow out a candle can blow out my Satsuma candle.
I'm so sorry, Frankie. I spent hours.
It looks incredible.
It does.
Have you taken a picture? Will you post a picture of it on the Storytime page afterwards?
Rory, can you take a picture of it?
Sure, I can. Also, I think yours is like an extremely low-tech scented candle, basically. It's like, you can just buy citronella ones, right, Frankie?
Fine. If you want to take all the joy out of life. Did you know that you can make an oil lamp out of an orange?
No.
What?
Birthday things first, then we'll talk about oil lamps.
the time to sing.
I feel like it's time to sing when the cake is back on screen.
Yeah. What's happened to Kitty? Has Kitty gone? Oh, Kitty's back.
Yay.
We ready?
Ready?
It's amazing.
Three. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Hey, happy birthday,
Hey.
Why did that not work so much?
That was
Wow. Wow, that was a total shit show, you guys.
We should have done a practice run first.
No, Gordon was your choir better than that earlier.
Oh,
It's funny how you adjust to like new like etiquette so quickly, right? Like I genuinely had a moment there of like, I shouldn't be breathing on this.
Yeah.
Like I almost reflexively put my head into my elbow to blow up my candles.
yeah. You have to cut it with your elbow. You can't use your hand.
Yeah, no, we doused the entire thing in hand sanitizer, which in retrospect should have done after the candles.
And there is one more thing. I asked Kitty if there was anything that you would like reading, that you might like reading for your birthday, and they sent me a poem. So I thought I would quickly read a poem for you, Rory, for your birthday before we get started. If that's okay with everyone. So it fucked me up. When Kitty sent it to me, I was like, well, thanks for that. Now I'm bored. So it's by Andrea Gibson. And it's called Letter to My Dog, Exploring the Human Condition. And Zach, if you could you maybe mute people just until it's done?
Sure.
Thanks, babe. So, this is Letter to My Dog, Exploring the Human Condition by Andrea Gibson. Dear Squash, aka Squashy, aka Squishy, aka Squasharoony Gibson, aka Squish Squash and You Don't Stop, aka Miracle Button, aka Little Perfect Peanut, aka My Beating Heart with Fur and Legs. I know you think it's insane that I still poop in the house, that I choose to wear underwear and pants, giving no one the opportunity to smell my true disposition. That on the days I need to feel better about myself, I don't just pee on someone's pee. Don't worry, I am not fooled by my thumbs. I know I am not the tadpole's final project. I know I am not the last species evolution hopes to become. I can't even swallow my own pride long enough to let myself drool when something smells delicious. What must you think of my mirror face? Or how much of the day I spend practicing my butch voice? My baby, I'll fix your carburetor with my toolkit voice, when you know full well there is nothing in my toolkit besides a massive collection of self-help books that have helped me do nothing but feng shui the skeletons in my closet. Don't you just love how that femur accents the sofa set, Squash? I'm sorry I cry every time I take you to the vet. I'm sorry they take your temperature like that. I'm sorry I take you there when you've only got a bug bite. Humans hold so tight to the leash of life, but you will roll in anything dead and wear it like perfume. I wish I had your nose for eternity. I wish I could see what you see. Where the squirrels are Satan in your eyes, where the postman deserves to die even when he's not bringing bills. What's with hating the shadow the peace lily makes on the floor in the living room? I know I let you down every day I choose not to murder the vacuum. Is it bad that I refuse to teach you not to be afraid of men? Is it bad that I want you to keep your bite and your snarl and your gleaming teeth? Is it bad that when they call you a risk, I call you a feminist? You never make fun of your friend Chloe's underbite, or your friend Willow's limp, or your friend Harvey's past trouble with the law. You never criticize me for being too uptight to let my hair down, even though you can let yours all the way out, all over my black hoodie, my black pants, the couch, the car, the chair. The online merch store that sells my books and t-shirts wrote me a letter saying, "We can't continue to sell your products if they continue to be covered in so much of your dog's hair." I just assumed anything covered in you would increase in value. Remember when I told that woman I loved her and whispered in your ear, "You're my #1 girl"? It's true. If I could, I would put your beating heart in my mouth and suck on it like a piece of candy so I could finally understand how you got so sweet. I know my therapist likes you more than she likes me, and I still let you sleep on her couch. You taught me a good nap is the best therapy. You taught me to sit when I damn well want to sit. I don't care that you never talk about capitalism or patriarchy or the heteronormative hegemonic paradigm. I know you're saving the world every time you get poo stuck in your butt hair and you don't go looking for someone to blame. Speaking of looking for someone, I can't imagine what you think of sex. I can't tell if you think it's a slobbering, badly boundaried belly rub or a poorly aimed fist fight. You just perch on the end of the bed and tilt your head back and forth, wondering why I still haven't taken my pants off. I have issues, Squash. Humans have issues. We dig holes to bury our own hearts. We chew on our own bones. We escape the predators but still can't shake them off. Some of us wear our own bodies the way your friend Berlin wore that cone around her head, remember? So embarrassed. But I never had a better teacher that came to my spirit than you. Never had a reason to stop playing dead until the day I saw your little face at the shelter. Your little nose pressed against the cold glass, staring up at me like I was a gay Noah's Ark. My heart, my heart, my heart. Every time I give you a treat, you run around the house looking for a place to hide it until you finally come to where I am sitting and hide it directly under me. The most important thing I have ever built in my whole life is your trust. May you always feel entitled to more than your fair share of the bed. May you always tear the stuffing out of every toy I give you, so I can constantly be reminded to keep spilling my guts, to keep saying, I don't know how I will ever make peace with the shortness of your lifespan, but I promise to make sure you know you are so loved every second you are here. You know my hands will build the sturdiest ark they possibly can, to hold your holy howl and your holy bark and your holy beg. Squasharoonie Gibson, my little perfect peanut, my beating heart with fur and legs. Happy birthday, love.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Right?
Oh my God.
Good.
How many people
Where's
are crying? How many people are crying?
Me.
Hands up if you're
I
crying.
mean,
Yeah,
Happy birthday, Rory.
Happy
thank
birthday,
you.
Rory.
And thank you so much, Frankie. That was beautiful.
Oh my God, you're so welcome. Thank you, Kitty. Kitty, you devastating fucking God.
where's
Well,
that poem from?
Andrea Gibson.
It was just a link. They just sent me a link to
Andrea, no, who is it? Andrea Gibson.
Andrea Gibson, yeah, they're an incredible poet from I want to say New York, but like I have a bunch of their poems and stuff in an anthology, and like seen them perform, and they're amazing. And
Oh my
yeah,
God.
all their stuff is like that. All their stuff is that good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'd love to read this again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I'll post it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
please
can
do.
post it.
I'm so interested in that. That was just amazing. So blown away. Let's also be honest, about 60% of the blown awayness is how Frankie read it. Yeah, like I don't think I could have read it even to myself that well in my head.
You weren't crying, Frankie.
Yeah.
What's that?
How come you weren't crying?
Oh, I nearly was. I properly nearly was at the end.
Same.
I could see like, so my little kind of 4-person gallery view, I have like Kitty and Rory up here and Casmira down here, and I could just see both Rory and Casmira like it's like, don't cry, keep reading.
Thank you. This is
That was lovely. That was
like
lovely.
I was saying, this is not how I expected to spend my birthday, obviously, but I couldn't have hoped for better company. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, I'm glad we got to share it with you.
Yeah.
Ah, wow. Well, this has been fun. Good night, guys. Good night. Enjoy story time.
It's already been.
And now something light with nothing bad.
Yeah. Should we
Oh,
have
I
some-
need wine. I'll be back in a second.
What's that?
Lisa's getting wine, but should we prepare ourselves for this being a traumatic day or a not traumatic day? It's always good to know in advance.
That's very true. Let's have a look.
Yeah, do I need more wine than this?
I mean,
How much wine and chocolate do we need to get through these chapters, Frankie? Tell us.
I'm not a good person to ask that kind of question to,
Oh,
because I will always say lots, more than you have.
All of it.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay. There's some excellent food descriptions.
That's perfect because I'm cooking food.
Ideal. I hope what you're mostly cooking is chocolates, because there's a lot of that here.
It's mostly leaves from my parents' farm.
Oh, god damn it, I bet they're delicious as well. Don't. Well, I'm gonna have this birthday satsuma soon, and then you'll all be jealous. Right. Are we all sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Chapter 28, Saturday, March 15th. I went to speak to Armand Voisin once again this morning. Once again, she refused to see me. Her red-haired watchdog opened the door and growled at me in his uncouth patois, wedging his shoulders against the frame to prevent me from entering. Armand is quite well, he tells me. A little rest will bring about a complete recovery. Her grandson is with her, and her friends visit every day. This with a sarcasm which makes me bite my tongue. She is not to be disturbed. It galls me to plead with this man, Père, but I know my duty. Whatever low company she has fallen into, whatever taunts she flings at me, my duty remains clear. To comfort, even where comfort is refused, and to guide. But it is impossible to speak to this man about the soul. His eyes are blank and indifferent as an animal's. I try to explain. Armand is old, I tell him, old and stubborn. There is so little time for both of us. Doesn't he see that? Will he allow her to kill herself with neglect and arrogance? He shrugs. She's fine, he tells me, his face bland with dislike. No one's neglecting her. She'll be just fine now. That isn't true. My voice is deliberately harsh. She's playing Russian roulette with her medication, refusing to listen to what the doctor tells her, eating chocolates for God's sake. Have you only thought what that might do to her in her condition? His face closes, becomes hostile and aloof. Flatly, she doesn't want to see you. Don't you care? Don't you care that she's killing herself with gluttony? He shrugs. I can feel his rage through the thin pretense of indifference. Impossible to appeal to his better nature. He simply stands guard as he has been instructed. Muscat tells him Armand has offered him money. Perhaps he has an interest in seeing her die. I know her perversity. To disinherit her family for the sake of this stranger would appeal to that part of her. I'll wait, I told him, all day if I have to. I waited for 2 hours outside in the garden. After that time, it began to rain. I had no umbrella and my soutane was heavy with moisture. I began to feel dizzy and numb. After a while, a window opened and I caught the maddening smell of coffee and hot bread from the kitchen. I saw the watchdog looking at me with that look of surly disdain and knew that I might fall unconscious to the ground without his making a move to help me. I felt his eyes on my back as I returned slowly up the hill towards Saint-Jérôme. Somewhere across the water, I thought I heard a sound of laughter. I have failed too with Josephine Muscat. Though she refuses to go to church, I have spoken with her several times, but to no avail. There is a deep core of some stubborn metal in her now, a kind of defiance, though she remains respectful and soft-spoken throughout our conversation. She never ventures far from La Céleste Praline, and she was outside the shop that I saw her today. She was sweeping the cobbles by the doorway, her head tied with a yellow scarf. As I made my way towards her, I could hear her singing to herself. "Good morning, Madame Muscat." I greeted her politely. I know that if she is to be won back, it must be by gentleness and reason. She may be made to repent later when our work is done. She gave me a narrow smile. She looks more confident now, back straight, head high, mannerisms she has copied from Vian Rocher. "I'm Josephine Bonnet now, Père." "Not under the law, madame." "Bof, the law." She shrugged. "God's law," I told her with emphasis, fixing her with reproach. "I have prayed for you, ma fille. I have prayed for your deliverance." She laughed at that, not unkindly. "Then your prayers have been answered, Père. I've never been so happy." She seems impregnable. Barely a week of that woman's influence, and already I can hear that other voice through hers. Their laughter is unendurable, their mockery, like Armand's, a goad which makes me stupid and enraged. Already I feel something in me respond, Père, something weak to which I thought I was immune. Looking across the square at the Chocolat, its bright window, the boxes of pink and red and orange geraniums at the balconies and at either side of the door, I feel the insidious creeping of doubt in my mind. And my mouth fills at the memory of its perfume, like cream and marshmallow and burnt sugar and the heady mingling of cognac and freshly ground cocoa beans. It is the scent of a woman's hair, just where the nape joins the skull's tender hollow. The scent of ripe apricots in the sun, of warm brioche and cinnamon rolls, lemon tea and lily of the valley. It is an incense diffused on the wind and unfurling softly like a banner of revolt, this devil's spore. Not sulphurous as we were taught as children, but this lightest, most evocative of perfumes. Combined essence of 1,000 spices, making the head ring and the spirit soar. I find myself standing outside Saint-Jérôme's with my head lifted into the wind, straining to catch a trace of that perfume. It suffuses my dreams, and I awake sweating and famished. In my dreams, I gorge on chocolates. I roll in chocolates, and their texture is not brittle but soft as flesh, like 1,000 mouths on my body, devouring me in fluttering small bites. To die beneath their tender gluttony seems the culmination of every temptation I have ever known, and in such moments I can almost understand Armand Voisin risking her life with every rapturous mouthful. I said, almost. I know my duty. I sleep very little now, having extended my penance to include these stray moments of abandon. My joints ache, but I welcome the distraction. Physical pleasure is the crack into which the devil sends his roots. I avoid sweet scents. I eat a single meal a day, and then only the plainest and most flavourless of food. When I'm not going about my duties in the parish, I work in the churchyard, digging the beds and weeding around the graves. There has been neglect there for the past 2 years, and I am conscious of a feeling of unease when I see what riot there is now in that hitherto orderly garden. Lavender, marjoram, goldenrod and purple sage have shot up in lavish abandon amongst the grasses and blue thistles. So many scents disturb me. I would like orderly rows of shrubs and flowers, perhaps with a box hedge round the whole. This profusion seems somehow wrong, irreverent, a savage thrusting of life, one plant choking another in a vain attempt at dominance. We were given mastery over these things, the Bible tells us, and yet I feel no mastery. What I feel is a kind of helplessness, for as I dig and prune and cut, the serried green armies simply fill the spaces at my back, pushing out long green tongues of derision at my efforts. Narcisse looks at me in amused contempt. Better get some planting done, Pear, he tells me. Fill those spaces with something worthwhile, otherwise the weeds will always get in. He is right, of course. I have ordered 100 plants from his nursery, docile plants which I will put in by rows. I like the white begonias and the dwarf iris and the pale yellow dahlias and the Easter lilies, scentless but so lovely in their prim walls of leaf. Lovely but not invasive, promises Narcisse. Nature tamed by man. Vianne Rocher comes over to look at my work. I ignore her. She is wearing a turquoise pullover and jeans with small purple suede boots. Her hair is a pirate flag in the wind. You've got a lovely garden, she remarks. She lets one hand trail across a swathe of vegetation. She clenches her fist and brings it to her face full of scent. So many herbs, she says. Lemon balm and eau de cologne mint and pineapple sage. I don't know their names. My voice is abrupt. I'm no gardener. Besides, they're just weeds. I like weeds. She would. I felt my heart swell with anger. Or was it the scent? I stood up hip deep in rippling grasses and felt my lower vertebra crackle under the sudden pressure. Tell me something, mademoiselle. She looked at me obediently, smiling. Tell me what you think to achieve by encouraging my parishioners to uproot their lives, to give up their security. She gave me a blank look. Uproot? She glanced uncertainly at the heap of weeds on the path at my side. I refer to Josephine Muscat, I snapped. Oh. She tweaked at a stem of green lavender. She was unhappy. She seemed to think that explained everything. And now, having broken her marriage vows, left everything she had, given up her old life, you think she will be happier? Of course. A fine philosophy, I sneered, if you're the kind of person who doesn't believe in sin. She laughed. But I don't, she said. I don't believe in it at all. Then I pity your poor child, I said tartly, brought up without God and without morality. She gave me a narrow, unamused look. Anouk knows what's right and wrong, she said, and I knew that at last I had reached her. One small point scored. As for God, she bit off the phrase. I don't think that white collar gives you sole right of access to the divine, she finishes more gently. I think there may be room somewhere for both of us, don't you? I did not deign to answer. I can see through her pretended tolerance. If you really want to do good, I told her with dignity, you will persuade Madame Muscat to reconsider her rash decision. And you will make Armand Voisin see sense. Sense? She pretended ignorance, but she knew what I meant. I repeated much of what I had told the watchdog. Armand was old, I told her, self-willed and stubborn. But her generation is ill-equipped to understand medical matters, the importance of diet and medication, the stubborn refusal to deal with the facts. But Armand is quite happy where she is. Her voice is almost reasonable. She doesn't want to leave her house and go into a nursing home. She wants to die where she is. She has no right. I heard my voice crack whip-like across the square. It isn't her decision to make. She could live a long time, another 10 years perhaps. She still may. Her tone was reproachful. She is still mobile, lucid, independent. Independent? I could barely conceal my disdain. When she'll be stone blind in 6 months, what is she going to do then? For the first time, she looked confused. I don't understand, she said at last. Armand's eyes are all right, aren't they? I mean, she doesn't even wear glasses. I looked at her sharply. She didn't know. You haven't spoken to the doctor, have you? Why should I? Armand, I cut her short. Armand has a problem, I told her, one which she has been systematically denying. You see the extent of her stubbornness. She refuses to admit, even to herself, even to her family. Tell me, please. Her eyes were hard as agates. I told her. Chapter 29. Sunday, March 16th. At first, Armand pretended she didn't know what I was talking about. Then, switching to a high-handed tone, demanded to know who had blabbed, while at the same time declaring that I was an interfering busybody and that I had no idea what I was talking about. Armand, I said as soon as she paused for breath, talk to me. Tell me what it means. Diabetic retinopathy. She shrugged. I might as well if that damn doctor's going to blab it all over the village. She sounded petulant, treating me as if I wasn't fit to make my own decisions anymore. She gave me a stern look. And you're no better, madam, she said, clucking over me, fussing. I'm not a child, Vianne. I know you're not. Well then. She reached for the teacup at her elbow. I saw the care with which she secured it between her fingers, testing its position before she picked it up. It is not she, but I who have been blind. The red-ribboned walking stick, the tentative gestures, the unfinished tapestry, the eyes shadowed beneath a succession of hats. It isn't as if you could do anything to help, continued Armand in a gentler tone. From what I understand, it's incurable, so it's nobody's business but my own. She took a sip of the tea and grimaced. Chamomile, she said without enthusiasm, supposed to eliminate toxins. Tastes like cat's piss. She put the cup down again with the same careful gesture. I miss reading, she said. It's getting too hard to see print nowadays, but Luke reads to me sometimes. Remember how I got him to read Rambo to me at that first meeting? I nodded. You make it sound as if it was years ago, I told her. It was. Her voice was light, almost uninflected. I've had what I thought I'd never be able to have, Vianne. My grandson visits me every day. We talk like adults. He's a good lad, kind enough to grieve for me a little. He loves you, Armand, I interrupted. We all do. She chuckled. Maybe not all, she said. Still, that doesn't matter. I have everything I've ever wanted right here and now. My house, my friends, Luke. She gave me a stubborn look. I'm not going to have any of that taken away from me, she declared mutinously. I don't understand. No one can force you to. I'm not talking about anyone, she interrupted sharply. Cousinet can talk as much as he likes about his retinal implants and his scans and laser therapies and what he likes. Her contempt for such things was apparent. But that doesn't change the plain facts. The truth is, I'm going blind, and there's not a lot anyone can do to stop it. She folded her arms with a gesture of finality. I should have gone to him sooner, she said without bitterness. Now it's irreversible and worsening. 6 months of partial sight is the most he can give me. Then le mortoire, like it or not, till the day I die. She paused. I could live another 10 years, she said reflectively, echoing my words to Renaud. I opened my mouth to argue, to tell her it might not be all that bad, then closed it again. Don't look like that, girl. Armand gave me a rallying nudge. After a 5-course banquet, you'd want coffee and liqueurs, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just suddenly decide to round it all off with a bowl of pap, would you? Just so you could have an extra course? Armand, don't interrupt. Her eyes were bright. I'm saying you need to know when to stop, Viam. You need to know when to push away your plate and call for those liqueurs. I'll be 81 in a fortnight. That's not so old, I wailed in spite of myself. I can't believe you're giving up like this. She looked at me. And yet you were the one, weren't you, who told Guillaume to leave Charlie some dignity? You're not a dog, I retorted, angry now. No, replied Armand softly, and I have a choice. A bitter place, New York, with its gaudy mysteries, cold in winter and flashing with heat in summer. After 3 months, even the noise becomes familiar, unremarkable. The sound of cars, voices, cabs melting into a single sheet of sound which covers the place like rain. Crossing the road from the deli with our lunch in a brown sack between her folded arms, I meeting her halfway, catching her eye across a busy street. A billboard advertising Marlboro cigarettes at her back. A man standing against a vista of red mountains. I saw it coming. Opened my mouth to shout, to warn her. Froze. For a second, that was all, a single second. Was it fear which stapled my tongue to the roof of my mouth? Was it simply the slowness of the body's reaction when faced with the imminence of danger, the thought reaching the brain an aching eternity from the dull flesh's response? Or was it hope? The kind of hope which comes when all dreams have been stripped away and what remains is the long, slow agony of pretense. Of course, Maman, of course we'll make it to Florida. Of course we will. Her face rigid with smiling, her eyes far too bright, bright as 4th of July fireworks. What would I do? What would I do without you? It's okay, Maman. We'll make it. I promise. Trust me. The black man stands by with a flickering smile on his face, and for that interminable second, I know that there are worse things, much worse things than dying. Then the paralysis breaks and I scream, but the cry of warning comes too late. She turns her face vaguely towards me, a smile forming on her pale lips. Why, what is it, dear? And the cry which should have been her name is lost in the squealing of brakes. Florida! It sounds like a woman's name, shrilling across the street. The young woman running through the traffic, dropping her purchases as she runs. An armful of groceries, a carton of milk, her face contorting. It sounds like a name, as if the older woman dying in the street is actually called Florida. And she is dead before I reach her, quietly and without drama, so that I feel almost embarrassed to make so much fuss. And the large woman in a pink tracksuit puts her meaty arms around me, but what I feel most is relief, like a lanced boil, and my tears are relief, bitter burning relief that I have reached the end at last. Reached the end intact, or almost. You shouldn't cry, said Armand gently. Aren't you the one who always says happiness is the only thing that matters? I was surprised to find my face wet. Besides, I need your help. Pragmatic as always, she passed me a handkerchief from her pocket. It smelled of lavender. I'm having a party for my birthday, she declared. Duke's idea, expense no object. I want you to do the catering. What? I was confused, passing from death to feasting, then back again. My last course, explained Armand. I'll take my medicine till then, like a good girl. I'll even drink that filthy tea. I want to see my 81st birthday, Vian, with all my friends around me. God knows, I might even invite that idiot daughter of mine. We'll bring in your chocolate festival in style. And then a quick shrug of indifference. Not everyone gets this lucky, she observed. Getting the chance to plan everything, to tidy all the corners. And something else. She gave me a look of laser intensity. Not a word to anyone, she said. Not anyone. I'm not having any interference. It's my choice, Bian. My party. I don't want anyone crying and carrying on at my party. Understand? I nodded. Promise? It was like talking to a fierce child. I promise. Her face took on the look of contentment it always wears when she speaks of good food. She rubbed her hands together. Now for the menu. Another?
More.
Of course, as if we wouldn't want you to carry on, Frankie. I mean, come on, let's be honest about this.
Charmer. Okay, so the next two are both very short, so I'll just read both. That works for everyone? Okay. Chapter 30. Tuesday, March 18th. Josephine commented on my silence as we worked together. We have made 300 of the Easter boxes since we began, stacked neatly in the cellar and tied with ribbons, but I plan for twice that many. If I can sell them all, we will make a substantial profit, perhaps enough to settle here for good. If not, I do not think of that possibility, though the weather vane creaks laughter at me from its perch. Rue has already started work on Anouk's room in the loft. The festival is a risk, but our lives have always been determined by such things. And we have made every effort to make the festival a success. Posters have been sent as far as Agen and the neighbouring towns. Local radio will mention it every day of Easter week. There will be music. A few of Narcisse's old friends have formed a band. Flowers, games. I spoke to some of the Thursday traders and there will be stalls in the square selling trinkets and souvenirs. An Easter egg hunt for the children, led by Anouk and her friends. Cornet Supplies for every entrant. And in Les Célestes Pralines, a giant chocolate statue of Eostre with a corn sheaf in one hand and a basket of eggs in the other, to be shared between the celebrants. Less than 2 weeks left. We make the delicate liqueur chocolates, the rose petal clusters, the gold-wrapped coins, the violet creams, the chocolate cherries and almond rolls in batches of 50 at a time, laying them out onto greased tins to cool. Hollow eggs and animal figures are carefully split open and filled with these. Nests of spun caramel with hard-shelled sugar eggs, each topped with a triumphantly plump chocolate hen. Piebald rabbits heavy with gilded almonds stand in rows, ready to be wrapped and boxed. Marzipan creatures march across the shelves. The smells of vanilla essence and cognac and caramelized apple and bitter chocolate fill the house. And now there is Armand's party to prepare too. I have a list of what she wants on order from Agen. Foie gras, champagne, truffles and fresh chanterelle from Bordeaux, plateau de fruits de mer from the Traiteur in Agen. I will bring the cakes and chocolates myself. It sounds fun, calls Josephine brightly from the kitchen as I tell her about the party. I have to remind myself of my promise to Armand. You're invited, I told her. She said so. Josephine flushes with pleasure at the thought. That's kind, she said. Everyone's been so kind. She is remarkably unembittered, I tell myself, ready to see kindness in everyone. Even Paul Marie has not destroyed this optimism in her. His behaviour, she says, is partly her own fault. He is essentially weak. She should have stood up to him long ago. Carole Clermont and her cronies she dismisses with a smile. They're just foolish, she tells me wisely. Such a simple soul. She is serene now, at peace with the world. I find myself becoming less and less so in a perverse spirit of contradiction. And yet, I envy her. It has taken so little to bring her to this state. A little warmth, a few borrowed clothes and the security of a spare room. Like a flower, she grows towards the light without thinking or examining the process which moves her to do so. I wish I could do the same. I find myself returning to Sunday's conversation with Renaud. What moves him is still as much of a mystery to me as it ever was. There is a look of desperation about him nowadays as he works in his churchyard, digging and hoeing furiously, sometimes bringing out great clumps of shrubs and flowers along with the weeds, the sweat running down his back and making a dark triangle against his soutane. He does not enjoy the exercise. I see his face as he works, features crunching with the effort. He seems to hate the soil he digs, to hate the plants with which he struggles. He looks like a miser forced to shovel banknotes into a furnace. Hunger, disgust, and reluctant fascination. And yet he never gives up. Watching him, I feel a familiar pang of fear, though for what I am not sure. He is like a machine, this man, my enemy. Looking at him, I feel strangely exposed by his scrutiny. It takes all my courage to meet his eyes, to smile, to pretend nonchalance. Inside me, something screams and struggles frantically to escape. It is not simply the issue of the chocolate festival which enrages him. I know this as keenly as if I had picked it out of his bleak thoughts. It is my very existence which does so. To him, I am a living outrage. He is watching me now, covertly from his unfinished garden, his eyes sliding sideways to my window, then back to his work in sly satisfaction. We have not spoken since Sunday, and he thinks he has scored a point against me. Armand has not returned to La Praline, and I can see in his eyes that he believes himself to have been the cause of this. Let him think it if it makes him happy. Anouk tells me he went to the school yesterday. He spoke about the meaning of Easter. Harmless stuff, though it chills me somehow to think of my daughter in his care. Read a story, promised to come again. I asked Anouk if he had spoken to her. Oh yes, she said blithely. He's nice. He said I could come and see his church if I wanted. See St. Francis and all the little animals. And do you want to? Anouk shrugged. Maybe, she said. I tell myself, in the small hours when everything seems possible and my nerves shriek like the unoiled hinges of the weather vane, that my fear is irrational. What could he do to us? How could he hurt us, even if that is his intention? He knows nothing. He can know nothing about us. He has no power. Of course he has, says my mother's voice in me. He's the black man. Anouk turns over restlessly in her sleep. Sensitive to my moods, she knows when I am awake and struggles towards wakefulness herself through a morass of dreams. I breathe deeply until she is under again. The black man is a fiction, I tell myself firmly, an embodiment of fears underneath a carnival head, a tale for dark nights, shadows in a strange room. In lieu of an answer, I see that picture again, bright as a transparency. Renaud at an old man's bedside, waiting, his lips moving as if in prayer. Fire at his back like sunlight through stained glass. It is not a comforting picture. There is something predatory in the priest's stance, a likeness between the two reddened faces, the glow of flame between them darkly menacing. I try to apply my studies in psychology. It is an image of the black man as death, an archetype which reflects my fear of the unknown. The thought is unconvincing. The part of me that still belongs to my mother speaks with more eloquence. "You're my daughter, Vianne," she says inexorably. "You know what that means." It means moving on when the wind changes, seeing futures in the turn of a card, our lives a permanent fugue. I'm nothing special. I am barely aware that I have spoken aloud. "Maman?" Anouk's voice, doughy with sleep. "Shh," I tell her, "it isn't morning yet. Sleep some more." "Sing me a song, Maman," she murmurs, reaching out her hand to me in the darkness. "Sing me the song about the wind again." And so I sing, listening to my own voice against the small sounds of the weather vane. V'là le bon vent, v'là le joli vent. V'là le bon vent, mamie m'appelle. After a while, I begin to hear Anouk's breathing steady again, and I know she is sleeping. Her hand still rests in mine, soft with sleep. When Gru has finished the work on the house, she will have a room of her own again, and we will both sleep more easily. Tonight feels too close to those hotel rooms which we shared, my mother and I, bathed in the moisture of our own breathing, with condensation running down the windows and the sounds of the traffic, interminable outside. V'là le bon vent, v'là le joli vent. Not this time, I promise myself silently. This time we stay, whatever happens. But even as I slide back into sleep, I find myself considering the thought not only with longing, but with disbelief. Chapter 31, Wednesday, March 19th. There seems to be less activity at the Rocher woman's shop these days. Armand Voisin has stopped visiting, though I have seen her a few times since her recovery, walking with a determined stride and with only a little help from her stick. Guillaume Duplessis is often with her, trailing that skinny puppy of his, and Luc Clermont goes down to Les Meraudes every day. On learning that her son has been seeing Armand in secret, Caroline Clermont gives a smirk of chagrin. "I can't do a thing with him these days, Père," she complains. "Such a good boy, such an obedient boy one moment, and the next..." She raised her manicured hands to her bosom in a theatrical gesture. "I only told him, in the mildest possible way, that perhaps he should have told me he was going to visit his grandmother." She sighed. "As if he thought I would disapprove, silly boy. Of course I don't, I told him. It's wonderful that you get on with her as well as you do. After all, you're going to inherit everything one day." And suddenly he's shouting at me and saying he doesn't care about the money. But the reason he didn't want me to know was that he knew I'd spoil everything, that I was an interfering Bible groupie. Her words, Père, I'd stake my life on that. She brushed her eyes with the back of her hand, taking care not to smudge her impeccable makeup. "What have I done, Père?" she pleaded. "I've done everything for that boy, given him everything. And to see him turn away from me, to throw it all in my face because of that woman." Her voice was hard beneath the tears. "Sharper than a serpent's tooth," she moaned. "You can't imagine what it's like for a mother, Père." Oh, you're not the only person to have suffered from Madame Rocher's well-intentioned meddling, I told her. Look around you at the changes she's made in just a few weeks. Caroline sniffed. Well-intentioned? You're too kind, Père, she sneered. She's malicious, that's what she is. She nearly killed my mother, turned my son against me. I nodded encouragingly. Not to mention what she's done to the Muscat's marriage, continued Caroline. It amazes me that you've had so much patience, Père. It really does. Her eyes glittered with spite. I'm surprised you haven't used your influence, Père, she said. I shrugged. Oh, I'm just a country priest, I said. I don't have any influence as such. I can disapprove, but you can do a sight more than disapprove, snapped Caroline tautly. We should have listened to you in the first place, Père. We never should have tolerated her here. I shrugged. Anyone can say that with hindsight, I reminded her. Even you patronized her shop, if I remember. She flushed. Well, we could help you now, she said. Paul Muscat, Georges, the Arnauds, the Drews, the Proudhons. We could pull together, spread the word. We could turn the tide against her, even now. For what reason? The woman hasn't broken the law. They'd call it malicious gossip and you'd be no better off than before. Caroline gave a narrow smile. We could wreck her precious festival, that's for sure, she said. Oh? Of course. Intensity of feeling makes her ugly. Georges sees a lot of people. He's a wealthy man. Muscat, too, has influence. He sees people. He's persuasive. The residence committee. Of course he is. I remember his father, the summer of the river gypsies. If she makes a loss on this festival, and I hear she's put quite a sum into preparing it already, then she might be pressured. She might, I replied mildly. Of course, I couldn't be seen to have any part of it. It might look uncharitable. I could tell from her expression that she understood perfectly. Of course, mon père. Her voice is eager and spiteful. For a second, I feel utter contempt for her, panting and fawning like a bitch in heat. But it is with such contemptible tools, Père, that our work is often done. After all, Père, you should know. The end.
Oh no.
Amazing.
He's just the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. He is not great.
No. That chapter with Amanda.
Yeah. Right.
Love her though, so much. Like, I love and respect that. I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
yeah,
the emotional logic is there. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And like this, I don't want to be all like first year English lit about this, but like the chocolate is such like a powerful fucking like metaphor for like hedonism and like experience of life and stuff, right? And then it's surrounded by so much fucking death.
I mean, life is surrounded by death. I think we don't see it as much in the Western world, but it really is.
I thought you were going to say life is surrounded by chocolate, which I would have agreed with.
That would have been much nicer.
It is that I'm almost out of chocolate in the flat. I think it's time to go shopping.
Ooh,
It's been 10 days.
Oh no, true emergency.
I laid in
How else are we going?
supplies.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, Frankie.
Let's all say hi to each other again.
Oh shit, we're doing it. Hi Vina, hi Frankie, hi Zach, hi Robert, hi Mira, Ben, hi Lisa, Charlotte, hi Martin, hi Ainsley, hi Jen, hi Gordon, hi Andrea, hi Janelle, hi Duncan,
Hi Nick, hi Katie.
Oh, I
Hi
do like
Cara,
to be
hi
beside
Gordon,
the
hi
sea.
Jen, hi Ainsley.
Oh, I do
Jen,
like
are
to
you
be
in a
beside
bath?
the tum.
Yes.
We're in a bath.
You're in a bath! Oh my god, that's the best.
We took inspiration from Monster.
God.
Incredible.
How big
Say
is
that
your
again?
bath?
It has
This
distance.
is massive. It's very impressive.
So they can't really show us because I don't think they have bubble bath.
You can only fit 3 or 4 people.
Nice.
Subscribe to the premium Snapchat.
Pablo.
We'll have to have a bath time edition of Storytime sometime.
Where everyone's in the bath.
Yes.
I don't have a bath in my flat.
Well, you're not invited.
Improvise.
Then.
You can just like squat in the shower.
Yeah.
You can go and share
I'll
Jen
do
and
that.
Nev's bath. Their bath is big enough for 4 people. So extra tea.
Actually, somebody's washing up bowl.
Like a paddling pool, maybe.
You can come up and join me in the hot tub. We got the hot tub set up today.
I'm done.
Have you done it?
I'm checking up trains right now.
Yeah. So, end of the crisis.
How many blues dancers do you think you can fit in what is technically a 4-person hot tub?
12.
12.
There's always one more.
Depends how much people.
There wouldn't be any water left.
We tessellate pretty nicely, right? You know, we're stackable.
Oh, thank you.
I'm pretty sure I've done 12 in a 4-person hot tub before.
So there were those like puppies that like squash themselves together into a bucket.
Yeah.
Oh.
One time when I was in a 4-person hot tub with 12 people,
I love you, Charlotte.
we all did that thing where you turn to the left and sit on each other's laps in a circle.
Amazing.
That
How many people did you do it with?
naked Australian jumped in the middle and then it scared off the teenagers.
Yeah, they'll do it.